All right. Well, it's definitely a special edition of Inside the Mind of D.Scott. It's actually more of a 4x6 Hallocks Hitting Garage reunion episode because for a minute, Mr. Matt Halleck and myself had a podcast together, and he's been on this show specifically twice, and now he's back to join me, and we're gonna talk some baseball. First and foremost, Matt, welcome back. It's good to see you, brother.
Thank you, D. Yeah, excited to be back together, partner. Now we're going to be talking a little bit baseball and softball and hitting.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about. You know, we'd be remiss to not think that we weren't going to share some ridiculous stories if we still have any left. But I mean, listen, I think collectively on the two podcasts I've had you on talked for about 4 hours. So maybe we're out of stories. I don't. It's
true, possibly.
It's quite possible. I don't know. Unless it's individual stories, not necessarily things that you and I were both involved in. But
right.
It was funny because I noticed that you ramped up with Hallocks Hitting Garage again, and you're kind of getting back into pumping out content on social media and what have you. And first of all, it's awesome to see because when you're not pumping out the content online, people are like, "What's wrong with Matt?" And when you do that shit, I get fucking messages. They're like, "What's wrong with Matt?" I'm like, "You got Matt's number? What are we doing?"
Yeah, what's going on?
I'm like, "I don't know. You know he lives in Florida, right?" I don't, but but no, it's always interesting to see too because one of the things I think when we got involved in Hallocks Hitting Garage and you did the whole thing with Soph and brought the family into all of that and asked me to be a part of it along with Matt Kelly and a couple of other people. While I wasn't an instructor, thankfully, I was paying attention to like my kid has gotten worse at baseball. Why is
right.
Dennis was coaching him. That's our.
It was Dennis. It was Coach Dennis.
Yeah, but no, I think as we got involved in that, and I started looking at baseball and softball a little differently, at least the hitting aspect of everything. And I've always obviously we played together. We both grew up playing the game, and I had thoughts on hitting. I didn't have as in depth information and once I started talking to you about stuff, things got like really wild. And now watching the game with me, I feel so bad for Tara because she's like,
oh she gets it now.
Shut up. Yeah. Like really?
Yeah. 100%.
But now she's doing it, which is hilarious. Like she'll watch and like, Stanton will swing at a slider that's in the dugout. And she's like, what the fuck is he doing? And I'm like, well, I guess it looked like a strike at one point, I don't.
Yeah. Before it turned.
Yeah. So, it's so like I was saying, it's good to have you back in the realm of social media and also pumping out the baseball and softball stuff. Because one of the things I think that sets you apart as a hitting coach is you kind of break down how to train certain things. You're not just posting like I see some online and it's more of a results-based thing as opposed, and it's like, well, this is what's going to happen if you keep your front shoulder closed.
Right.
It's like, okay, but telling a 10-year-old to keep his front shoulder closed doesn't mean shit unless you show him and teach him how to keep his front shoulder closed.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that you do that I think is most impressive is you give the reasons and the whys and the hows as opposed to just, and maybe these other coaches do, they're just not putting it on their social media.
Right, exactly.
We're not a part of their lessons. We don't know what they're doing. And somebody's paying these people to do it. So it must be
right.
Something. But I think that's the one thing, with you in the content you do post. Can you hear that squeaking in my chair?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, nothing but the best.
WD-40.
I don't have any. I got a cowbell.
Okay.
But
okay. Yeah. That might
help. So let's jump into the hitting aspect, and I mean, if you're getting into this and it's new to you, and Matt Halleck is new to you, or maybe you've seen a few things. Our friends, everyone that we know is going to listen to this, knows your resume. Can you just kind of, I don't know, not glaze over, but just let's talk about what you did in college, where you went to college, what you did in the ranks of Division III college, and some of the school records you hold and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So I'll give a brief bio, but then kind of just morph it into all things right up until now, right? Um, so collegiately, just was really blessed. Joined a D3 organization, Mount St. Mary, out of Newburgh, New York. Was given the opportunity and went there because I could compete and play early in my career, and won a starting spot as a freshman. Ended up being 4-year All-State, Rookie of the Year in my conference. A lot of this is due to the hitting aspect of what I provided to the team, but
Oh
I
yeah,
had
and
a
by the
glove
way,
too.
Matt is not known for his defense. Matt is known for
No,
his.
I can glove it, but a lot of this, the accolades were related to inside the batter's box. But um, leading into senior season, co-captained the first ever sports team in Mount St. Mary history, men's or women's, to the NCAA tournament that year as well. Was second in the nation in D3 as far as batting average. Also hold the record, obviously, single season batting average for Mount St. Mary. On base, the biggest thing I was proud of, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, is on base for a season. Obviously, that season I had the on base record. I was fifth in the nation in on base percentage in 1998, but hold the record at the Mount for on base percentage in the season. I also hold it for my entire career. So
Nice.
career on base percentage over the 4 years, I still statistically rank up there. Was 11th in the nation in walks. So we'll talk a little bit about decision making that year in '98, and I'm second in Mount St. Mary history in career walks. So that is kind of my playing career. When undrafted, signed a professional independent contract with the Huntingtonburg Dragons out of the Frontier League in Indianapolis. Tore my rotator cuff, got injured, shut baseball down before that season even started. And then, fast forward to say 15 years, had our firstborns, Nadia and I, Sophia, played softball, coached her in rec. Parents then said, let's play travel ball. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Fast forward through 6 years of that, traveled around the country coaching elite high level fast pitch softball under the OC Batbuster brand. And then that's really kind of where I would say my name and connectivity and networking was starting to leak out because we were pounding the ball over the place. And then through that, developed a large network on the fast pitch softball, and then had a big contingency on the baseball side up in New York from our network and our friends, right, Dennis, in the Capital Region, just because of what I did on the baseball field all through the Cap City and New York, the Northeast. And then launched Hallocks Hitting Garage 21, right? You were a part of it.
Yep.
Matt Kelly, my family, a bunch of other guest instructors. And then that's where kind of the world of all things that I've done was doing kind of accelerated through wanting to learn and be educated more just to help athletes be more successful and get on base more, really what it was. So that's where I got connected with Chad Miller and Heather Keeper at a Louisville Slugger Hitting Science Center. That was launched for all the Louisville Slugger branded athletes and MLB and professional women. I was brought in kind of as a grassroots instructor to help really launch their ground pressure technology that the center was using, and high speed motion capture video by V1 Sports and Anthony Magalia. And that was my connection to Michael Jordan. Weirdly enough, one of our idols, right? He was the capital venture project, Black Cat Ventures for V1 Sports. So I got kind of wrapped up in.
Just for those of you listening, that was a name drop by Matt Halleck right there.
Yeah, I did name drop Mike.
Listen, and it was a good one. Like it wasn't some bullshit. Like
no, yeah. So worked for Michael Jordan for a short period of time, but really got to know high level kind of biomechanics under the realm of kinesiology, which is all things just body movement, physiology, the anatomy, but really just how the body moves in space, and then leveraging a lot of technology. From there, just was then wrapped up through them to a lot of high-level athletes and accelerated my knowledge to be able to coach hitting any level, any age, baseball and softball. And blessed with the gift of gab to be able to chameleonize myself to the athlete and break it down very, very simplistically on what is going on with them in the batter's box at practice And then I'm morphed into obviously mental training plan and mental coaching, decision making, all things that just help athletes compound and get on base more. So I am a hybrid, to say the least.
That's for sure. One of the things I do want to just for the laymen that are listening, when we talk about things like biokinetics, and basically it's just movement of the body, correct?
Yeah, it's a biomechanics is basically a subset of kinesiology. Kinesiology is all things your anatomy, your cells, things that go on in your head to affect your nervous system to your body. A subset of that is biomechanics, and that's how your body mechanically moves in space in whatever you're doing when you're in motion. So, I mean, a lot of why Dennis and I are on this podcast talking to the ones that are listening is because we consume a lot of social media. I obviously consume a heavy amount of hitting instructors that are online. And we always have fun going back and forth and talking and texting on what instructors or coaches just put out, right? And 90% of what gets put out on social media on all platforms is biomechanics. You know, what drills can I do with an athlete on a tee, flips, front toss, whatever it is, to get their body in a better position to hit the ball properly. And there's, wow, never know what happens when you're recording. Did I get really bright right now as far as the light? Yeah, we're live recording. My entire drapes just fell down from my window.
Oh, they just came down?
Yeah, they literally are now behind the screen.
Okay.
So as the sun sets, won't be as bright into the camera. But yeah, that's one of the reasons, or many reasons, why we're doing the podcast, is just because of what's out on social media, which, again, everything's opinion based. Nobody's right or wrong, but a lot of what is put out and consumed by parents, athletes, coaches, whatever, is biomechanics, body movement, drills, and there's not much decision making, rhythm and time and training, mental approach being put out, because it's not flashy, doesn't get clicks, likes, comments, pretty much, because the movement of body is what people like to see optically. They don't want to listen about how do we create a better human being, allow them to make better decisions and be a little bit more comfortable, less anxiety, fear, doubt. Like, that doesn't get clicks, but that's important.
The last thing we want to do on social media is create better people.
Yeah, create better humans. How do we create people that can handle adversity and overcome rejection? Oh, you play a game of failure. Yeah, go swing more off the tee. Let me show you a drill.
Yep. I mean, not for nothing, we're trying to create better people. I'm still sitting here wondering why you had to send me one Bigfoot video on TikTok, and now all I see is Bigfoot videos. Which are
Bigfoot
hilarious, by the way.
God bless AI.
Hilarious.
Wildly inappropriate, but the creativity behind what people can do with script writing and artificial intelligence. If you're not consuming Bigfoot and his buddy the Yeti content video on TikTok, don't put it in, because you'll be down a wormhole of laughter.
The fact that we're talking about it and you're listening to this and your phone hears it, you're going to see it on your TikTok feed. So just be
pretty much
for that. But
yeah.
So it's funny because you and I have a very similar approach to the mindset of, how do I want to say this? It's all about the contact point, I guess, is where I wanted to go with that, because one of the things that you and I talked about not too long ago was we saw that it was a graphic, I think, of Shohei and Judge, and it had something to do with the better swing and yada.
Who had the better swing?
And it was legit a clickbait type thing. It was just trying to get people to, like, it was trolling essentially, because I looked at it and, again, I don't have the training that Matt has. I don't have the training or the experience that all these other guys have. I have the training of listening to Matt talk and watching 130 Yankee games a season.
Right.
And why don't I watch 162? Because I got shit to do every once in a while. That's why.
There's other things going on.
Yeah. Sometimes they play during the day and I got to, work. Or they're on Roku for whatever reason. But
right.
I saw that and immediately sent it to you, and I go, "Yo,
Mm-hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong. These aren't the same place in the swing. Like you could see that Judge was like later in his swing, or I should say earlier in his swing, and Shohei was more at like contact. And I'm like, that's and then what? And which, by the way, I was correct. Which I patted myself on the back for that one.
Yeah, you were absolutely right.
I was like, you could, all you had to do was have a little bit of experience in swinging a bat and knowing that you're like, this not the same point. It's not the. Then you were like, well, we don't know if it was the same pitch. We don't know if there was like 4, 5, 6 different things that factored into the end result. And one of the things that you and I, and this is to go back to my original point, one of the things that you said was, I don't care what the swing looks like as long as the barrel hits the ball where it's supposed to. Which
Yeah.
my mindset in golf, you try to have a nice looking golf swing because then you go out there and people look at you and go, oh, you can play because you can look at a swing. But I
Right.
don't care. I do not care how you get to contact point in golf. If the club face is square when it hits the ball, it's gonna go where it's supposed to. It's gonna go where you're aiming as long as the club face is square at contact. Doesn't matter how you
Yep.
get there. It's the contact point.
100%. Sports are results based.
Right.
Like you play a sport to win or lose, and in the sport of baseball and softball, in order to do that, you have to step on the plate more than the other team. In order to do that, you have to get on the bases
Are you paying
to
attention,
be
New
able,
York Yankees? Are you paying
like,
attention?
yeah, like that's so. There's now. Are there things? Obviously, golf swing, anything that you have body motion, that you have a weapon in your hand, you're trying to attempt to contact the object. There are things based on the anatomy of a human, biomechanically, where we can put our body in position to yield a higher win percentage of said get on base.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're getting the barrel to the ball, it doesn't matter. There's not a one particular type of swing that is right universally for everyone.
Right.
And we can talk about Richard Shank and HLP and Aaron Judge's hitting coach and this new philosophy of hitting. But irregardless of all of that, everybody's body moves different. Everybody optically views things in space differently as they're traveling down the pitching lane. As long as you're getting the heaviest and fattest part of that bat on the ball, your chances of getting on base go up. But there are a ton of things from the time you're in the dugout to the time you're in the batter's box to using the full 4x6 or 7x3 in softball space of the batter's box, what your approach is, what your self-talk. There's all these small little things that can compound to raise your win percentage of just getting on base more. And I think that's one of the things that I'm lucky enough over the years have developed a set of skills to be able to help athletes with. And yet, like you said, people that are around me, like yourself, parents, they look at the game through a different lens after being around me for an hour, 2 hours, multiple lessons at camps, because now you're looking at the game differently in a, okay, well, that actually makes sense now.
Right.
Type of thing where people just, you don't know what you don't know. And luckily, like I said, I've been put in front of a lot of different people. My father was a hybrid, unique type of coach, that trained me. And then I'm a wealth of wanting to absorb information to be able to help others. And now we're doing it and talking on a podcast about some wild stuff on hitting that people probably have not heard or seen. Right. So hopefully you can tune into this whole podcast. I guarantee there's going to be something that comes out of my mouth or Dennis's mouth that's making going to go, oh, that makes sense. Why don't I ever see that on social media? Or why is a coach
by accident?
Maybe mine. Yeah. Whoops. Slipped. Oh, Dennis said something.
Dennis said something that made sense.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are well aware of the two of us and grew up around us and grew up around Mr. Hallock, Matt's coaching style is vastly different than his dad's was.
Vastly different than my father's. Yeah. There's integral parts of what I do, but I spin it and massage it in the way to coach athletes. But I mean, there's a lot of what my father instilled in me that comes out. But yeah, the overall style's vastly generationally different.
I wanted to touch on that too, because I think because it's a different time. So you're Dick Hallock 2.0. is basically what it is, because your dad from a different era. We came from the last of that era, and could handle that. But now the way kids are approached and talked to is completely different. And
Yeah.
the messaging is there. And dude, I've said it on this show a bunch of different times that your father impacted so many different people.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you think back now to our young days, when Mr. Hallock was being Mr. Hallock on the field or on a court or wherever it was, there was always purpose behind it, and he wasn't doing it with ill intent.
No.
And I think actually you and I talked about this on one of the shows we did, where it was always, he knew what we were capable of as athletes and only wanted the best out of us.
Yep.
And that was his way of telling us, you're better than that. Do better, because I know you can.
Yeah.
So
yeah, my delivery is vastly different. But there are things that I was doing unbeknownst to me at the time that was just so far ahead, like my training that my father put me through, that was so far ahead of anybody, any of my peer group, or at the time, high school, college, even the pros were doing. I mean, I was put through decision making and optics training well before that was even a thing.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, oh, he had a lot of skill, and he was just, Dick Hallock's All-American football player, and he's got the bloodline athletically, and he's got great hand-eye coordination, and, he trains a lot, does a lot of work. Like, I was doing some really, at the time, wonky stuff back then, that again compounded and made me much better than I already just naturally was, with using tennis balls and decision making and having different approaches and mindsets. I think the biggest thing was the mental training. I didn't know at the time I could play very, very well under extreme pressure and stress, and was able to lower my heart rate, was able to maintain a level of calm. When I made a mistake or something didn't go my way, it was the next task. I didn't let it bleed into. So like the mental training that I was going through, not knowing at the time, that allowed me from a physical form to continue to perform at a high level and not tense up, have sweaty palms, not be able to focus.
Right.
So like, yeah, he was an innovator when it came to coaching, but yeah, he had a different delivery style of coaching than me for sure. But a lot of those things that I was trained at, I use nowadays, and people are like, oh, wow, I don't ever see a lot of coaches do this type of stuff. I'm like, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I'm only doing it because, one, logic, like,
there's that.
and I put it out the other day, and you mentioned a lot of these different things. You take swings off a tee, and hear me, parents, on this, please, if you work with your son or daughter, or even coaches. Just from a logic standpoint, remove yourself from this situation. If you're placing a ball on a tee for an athlete, and they're hitting the ball 40 times doing tee work over 3 days a week, that's 120 baseballs or softballs. They're hitting off a tee, but you're placing the ball on the tee for them, right? They work, say, half the year they do that. That's 3,120 baseballs or softballs they're hitting off the tee. If they do that for 5 years, that's 15,000 baseballs that they'll hit off the tee. They're going to naturally become a better body mover, right, if you're doing something correctly that many amount of times. Why don't you toss them the ball, have them catch it, and place it on the tee? You think their hand-eye dexterity or hand-eye coordination would improve? It's logic. So it was things like that. Like, my father did that to me. I didn't know what the reason was. I'm like, he's being lazy. He's not just put the ball on the tee for me, Dad. And then, like, I think I was like 11 or 12. He's like, listen, I'm flipping you balls because you're catching them with your hand.
Yep.
And you're stepping out of the box, putting it on the tee, and have to replace your body in the batter's box. You're trying to replicate things with your brain and your body that you're going to do in the game. And I'm like, just put the ball on the tee for me. But it just logically makes sense. I will go against most people that my hand-eye coordination was just so accelerated, and my decision-making through my eyes to my body. My father flipped me balls, and I caught them and put them on the tee for 10 to 15 years. 30, 40, 50,000 balls that I caught, I'm going to be more accelerated than most of my peer group.
Yeah. No, 100%. And again, it speaks back to the logic of just little things, and it's little things that people don't think of, and it's
Right.
which is that's just what it is. And
Yes.
had your dad not done it for you, you probably wouldn't be doing it for your athletes.
I would be sitting on a bucket, placing the ball on
Yeah.
the tee for my athlete, and then critiquing their swing or praising them, and then taking a ball out of the bucket and placing it on a tee rather than flipping it to them and have them
Right.
universally use their left or the right, catch it, and place it on the tee.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. But it's these small little things that compound to allow athletes to have a better time playing the sport that they do, have a higher win percentage of getting on base, and ultimately be a better version of themselves within the sport that they play. If you have access to the right training, coaching, I just universally have a different
Listen,
idea and thought process to a lot of things that are put out on social media.
the game is way more fun when you're getting on base. When you're hitting the ball and getting on base, it's way more fun
Yeah.
than
Yeah, the
striking out.
winning solves a lot of things. It's a game of failure, right? We're talking baseball, softball. Tell me another sport that you hit a round object with a round object.
Right.
Like it's just very difficult. Like when you are on offense, you don't have the ball.
Right.
Like it's just such a wonky game. And anything that we can do as coaches to help our athletes be an overall better person and athlete to allow them to have more fun in the game. That's really what it is. But yeah,
Well,
I don't want to keep going back to social media, but I want to like block a lot of people.
you're winning.
Yes.
One of the things, I mean, you say it's a game of failure. Like if we think about it, when you say things like the guy's hitting 300, which is unheard of nowadays, and Aaron Judge has been looking like absolute dog shit at the plate lately, and he's still hitting 360.
Right.
So now the standard has been lowered in at least Major League Baseball to like if he's a 250 or 280 hitter, you're considered almost elite. Dude, that's 28%. I would have been the valedictorian at Colony High if 28% was passing.
Yeah.
I was really good at failing shit. Like,
yeah. I mean, think of any other profession or anything that we are performing in a job, anything that we like to say that you do it only 3 times out of 10 and you can be happy about the way that you performed in your results. So yeah, everybody's getting fired. So this game is so much more than biomechanics and putting our body in better places and drills to allow them to get on base more. It's way deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mental side. It's your internal metronome of rhythm and timing, the tempo of your body, and decision making, all before your body makes a decision to actually swing the bat. Right. And that's what universally across social media and coaches, they don't know what they don't know. It's not flashy to coach that. My ego gets in the way, and I know that I can tell an athlete because I can see that their hands drop, and I'm going to tell them about that, which you should do anyways. But am I training them to make better decisions? You make better decisions at the plate, you have better results. You make better decisions in life, you have better results.
Yep.
And that's probably the biggest, I would say, thing you and I always talk about that I always constantly put out. And Coach Rack put it out on TikTok that plays for the Savannah Bananas last night, and I shared it. Like rhythm, timing, decision making, all before contact, like body movement to contact. And you just don't see it enough, and it's not coached enough, and it drives me. I get on tangents because it just makes sense. Like you can have a crappy swing, make great decisions, and be a really good hitter. You can have a beautiful looking, biomechanically perfectly aligned swing, make horrible decisions, and you suck.
Yeah.
Now imagine if you make good decisions and you have a bad or good swing. Again, just what you said. You're making good decisions, getting to the ball. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's one of the things is decision making, and then coaches like you and I talked about it, Dennis. They talk about it.
Yep.
Make better decisions. Be aggressive. Be selective. I mean, heck, I'm wearing aggressively selective is the Hallocks Hitting Garage motto. Like, oh, wait for your pitch. They're always talking about like this is what you need to do, and
Right.
here's the result if you do it. They never explain how to train it and why is it important to train it,
Right.
because
One
they
of
don't
the
know what they don't know.
one of the things I want to go back to, and we'll do that in a second, but touching back on what you just said, one of the things we always heard when we were younger too, you got 2 strikes, you got to shorten up, just make
Oh God.
contact. Well, none of us knew how to do that because no one ever taught us how to shorten up. Choke up on the bat, just put the ball in play. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I was still getting off my A swing on a 2-strike count because I didn't know any different.
because you weren't trained it.
Right.
How would you know it if you're
So,
not from a neuromuscular repetition
right.
trained to do it? So yeah, shorten up and put the ball in contact. Well, coach, regardless, I'm trying to put the ball into play. Like I'm trying to make contact.
I've
If
been
it's
doing
no
that
balls,
since
no strikes, or if it's 0-2, I'm trying to hit the ball and put it in play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna eventually release some kind of book. There's a lot of interesting things that coaches say, like statements or phrases, and I could probably write a 20 chapter book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you got to make right decisions. You got to have good rhythm and tempo and be on time before you have great biomechanics.
So something you brought up earlier when we were talking about about pops and all that stuff, and you said there's a lot that goes into it before you get in the batter's box, when you're in the dugout, when you're in the on deck circle. This is one of the things that I wanted to talk about with you is your mental approach to before you're even in the box. So what are some of the things that players can do when they're in the dugout? Now, granted, if you're dealing with, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids in the dugout, there's going to be some
Yes,
because we're kids. Like, we all did that shit.
Correct.
Like, we were 11 years old in the dugout with our buddies.
Let them be kids. Yes,
We were messing around. But as you get a little bit more competitive and you're getting older, what are some of the things that like an athlete should be doing in the dugout well before it's their time to even step in the on deck circle and then get in the box?
I love that you brought this up. I didn't think that you would. But we coach this at the camps that we run, right? And I do this with athletes that I train. There's so many things prior to even getting in the box that we can do to raise our win percentage of the result that we want when we get in the box, which is just to get on base. The biggest thing is, one, just knowing your spot in the lineup, like self-awareness, knowing where I'm at in the lineup and who's hitting before me. Mm-hmm. Like, not just before me, like 2 or 3 to 4 batters before me. And then being just aware of what's going on. So there's a million different things as you get older that you can just pick up by watching and listening. That's communication from the coaches to the pitcher. That is just the pitcher tipping pitches. That is when you get into high school travel ball at all different levels, collegiately. Now they have pitch charts and graphs, so you can know exactly what they're throwing, locations. The more you know and data that you can use to raise your win percentage is helpful because it gives you an advantage. The biggest thing I would say is probably when you're in the hole, not on deck, but you're actually in the hole prior to going on deck before you get into the batter's box. That's when we need to tune out and literally lock in to what is going on with that pitcher in the situation of the game. How are they pitching the person 2 people ahead of me? What are the results of that? And then once I go on deck, I shouldn't be loading my bat up, looking at the fans. The only thing I should be doing on deck is timing. Like, the number one thing is I am getting on deck as fast as I can for that first pitch of the batter before me that's in the box, and I am doing my stance, load, stride to launch, and not swinging, but I am aggressively ready to swing and trying to get my timing. That is the only thing. If it's a ball, if it's a strike, the catcher's throwing back to the pitcher, then you can actually swing and maybe like warm your body up. But we're athletes, so everybody should be warm, right? But those are the biggest things that a lot of coaches don't coach to try to gain advantages to help their hitters. Is lock in pretty much, know where your spot is, what's going on in the game. Like, you don't be throwing your batting gloves on and your helmet, trying to grab your bat, your shin guard, your elbow guard, all this protective wear, and then you're racing up to the on deck circle, and next thing you know, your teammate just hit a single or popped up what do you think that's going to do to your anxiety level? You
Yeah,
know,
well,
you're not prepared. You're going in, you're just not mentally ready, regardless, right?
Yep.
You could still have success, but anytime we can gather information and be a little bit more preparedness going into any situation, we have a higher win percentage. So yeah, lock in, like I said, one, when you're in the hole, on pitch location, pitch type, especially that first freaking pitch. Like, hey coach, what are you tracking? Is he or she throwing fastballs? Yeah, the last 7 batters have been all fastballs. Thank you, coach.
Yep. That's the other thing that I wanted to talk about too, is the communication, because
huge.
Like we said, you know, at a certain age, you're communicating with the other people in the dugout, but it's more like you're goofing around and cracking.
Yeah.
And actually, at any age, for me, I was pretty much screwing around on the bench and cracking jokes.
And the greatest thing about anything in life, it's too short. You can still do that.
Yeah.
You know, 100%. But why? What would be the reasoning to ask an athlete why you wouldn't want to lock yourself in and to be able to perform at a higher level?
Right.
So those athletes don't know what they don't know. Coaches need to do a better job of preparedness. And how you train that is you have them do visualizations. When they're doing tee work, have them walk up to the batter's box and do their routine.
Mm-hmm.
And then take a swing. Do like 5 of those. You know, if there's somebody at practice throwing pitches in the bullpen, have a couple kids go over and act like they're on deck and just do timing.
Right.
You got to practice things. You can't just say it as a statement and expect the athlete to, one, retain it. After about an hour, we retain about 20% of the information that we're told.
Right.
You have to neurologically train yourself where it becomes subconscious.
Well,
that's the biggest default of coaching. Coaches tell, they don't explain and then put into practice things.
It's expecting your athlete to know what you're talking about. And
yeah,
one of the reasons for practice, and I feel like I shouldn't have to tell a coach this because the coach should know this, but so much in sports is muscle memory. So that's why you're training. And I know one of the things that you also teach is training is basically practice with purpose.
Intent, man.
Have a reason to be doing the drill you're doing. And you know, and it's unfortunate that it gets lost on a lot of coaches, I guess. But yeah, no, but I remember like when we would have practices, not necessarily school ball, but like, you know, when I was playing Babe Ruth or just like, you know, little league stuff, we'd go and we just had practice. And it was like, well, what's the purpose in what we're doing? Go up there and take your 20 swings in batting practice.
Oh God, that is probably the biggest one. And I'm glad you brought that up right there, D. That one burns me up. And it burns me up because, again, I come in with an understanding and empathy to coaches because there needs to be more volunteer coaches, right? Yes. Just to allow kids to play more sports. So bless up all the coaches out there, even if you don't know crap about the sport, you're out there, right? But as we move up, some of the things that we do, unfortunately, does hinder, like you said, not have an intent or a purpose or a plan. But the biggest thing from a decision-making standpoint, where we unfortunately ruin neuro-optics, which is how your brain to your body works based on what you're seeing, is in the cage or BP. And this is probably one of the biggest hacks that I was taught that I bring into, you know, the Florida Batbusters or Riverview Warriors 05, and then the Florida Batbusters 05 Riverview on the travel team. When we do flips, front flips behind an L screen in a cage, 6, 7, 8, 10 feet, or throwing BP to an athlete, if we don't give them a pitch count, they're going to free swing like they're in a 2-strike approach the whole time. So you're through their eyes to their brain and then telling their body, no matter if I can get the bat on it, it's in the strike zone, I'm swinging. Mm-hmm. And usually it's because, one, the coaches aren't thinking about this, and it's the commodity of time. We're trying to rush them through BP because we're on the time clock. Yep. We've got to get done with practice. The storm's rolling in. We got to be on the field in 30 minutes for the game. And then they go in the batter's box and we're telling them to do the opposite. We're telling them not to swing at everything and be selective to the pitch that they can hit. Well, coach, you just trained me 35 minutes ago, and I swung at 4 balls that were up and in the strike zone, 2 balls that were low and away in the strike zone, a ball that was up and away in the strike zone, 1 was down the middle but low in the strike zone, and I swung at all of them. And now I'm trying to do the opposite. So I think that's probably one of the biggest, I would say, decision-making hacks that Hallocks Hitting Garage puts out that I very rarely see. And I'll mention some hitting instructors online at the end of this that I would approve. Do you go watch? When you do flips, you put them in pitch counts.
Mm-hmm.
You put your athletes in pitch counts because there are pockets in the zone, in the upper third, middle third, and bottom third that they just hit statistically different than other parts of that zone. And if you're not training for them to lay off certain ones based on the pitch count that they're in, they are going to statistically get on base lower because 70% of balls that are put in play that are outs in any age group and any level are balls that are swung at in pitch counts that they never needed to swing at. Go watch the game. Go turn a game on tonight, tomorrow after you see this. I guarantee you 7 out of the first 10 outs, the athlete is making a decision to swing at a pitch in the strike zone or out of it that they never even needed to swing at in the first place.
Don't watch Anthony Volpe.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. We break that whole thing down.
He swings at every first pitch.
But yeah, I would say that's the biggest hack is train your athletes in positive pitch counts to hammer balls that are below their hands and above their belt and lay off balls that cut the middle of the plate and right down the middle and no ball 1-0, 2-0 counts because they're going to pound it into the ground and get out.
Yep. Just so you know, quick little update. Yankees are up 3-0 right now. Chisholm homered. 2-run homer.
Awesome. Good comeback from being tossed last night.
Yeah, let's quick aside on that one. Before we get back into some more hitting tips, stuff like that.
Sure.
So I watched that last night, and actually, that was a tremendous lesson. I think actually for this podcast too, a tremendous
100%.
lesson in your mental toughness.
Yep.
When you're in the batter's box, because that bad call, which was a bad call, screwed him. See me censor myself there? That was pretty good. Screwed him so much, just screwed him up in that he was done. You knew he was out the minute he kept talking about that strike. Granted, it was strike 2, and it put him in a hole. No, I think it was strike 1.
It was 2-0, and that put him. It would have been 3-0, but it put him in a 2-1 count. But yeah, I mean, you could go on about this. It changed
right out of the at bat. I was like, he's
everything.
Count right. He's at an advantage in the count, and he's going to strike out. I guarantee it because he
struck out.
Pitch, he turned and said something to the ump. The next pitch, he turned and said something to the ump, and then he kept barking in the dugout. And then he got out on the field, and the ump baited him because the ump was staring at him the entire time out there.
He was mentally lost.
Yeah.
After that
call. Now, my whole thing was, why isn't our fearless leader getting in his ear, telling him, "Shut up, manage your team, manage your players"? That's how I looked at that because I know Jazz plays with a lot of intensity and a lot of
a lot,
which is great for our team because there's not a whole lot of that right now. But at some point, the boss needs to go, okay, well, boys, I'm going to let the boys be boys for a little bit, but eventually I have to be dad and go, hey, that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to coaching, right? It was a great moment that I'm going to end up clipping and making a whole segment out of because it's all things that I coach that not a lot of coaches on social media ever coach, which is the mental side.
Right.
In the highest rate of failure sport in baseball and softball, to how to deal with things that are out of your control, meaning umpires that just blow strike counts, calls, all different things. How do I put that behind me and focus on the next task, which is the next pitch? That is the hardest thing to do in sport, right? It's not things that you did that's another thing. I make an error or whatever, I'm getting mad at myself. But getting mad about something that happened 2 seconds ago or 3 minutes ago, because I can't jump in the DeLorean and go back and redo it, it's over. But what are the tools that we're giving as coaches to the athletes to allow them to better handle those situations? Because that's life.
Right. No, 100%.
Umpires making bad calls is going to happen until, and you and I talked about this, technology takes over. But still, while there's humans making opinions on the strike zone, you have to be able to put that behind you and focus on your mental self-talk, your just everything that you did before that call was made.
Right.
But he was a mess. Coach didn't call time, didn't come out, talk to him, which he had every right to. Like, why don't you call timeout and call him over and be like, listen, man, lock in. He was yelling it from the dugout. But, I mean, love Jazz Chisholm, huge energy boost, brings a lot to the organization. But I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure Jazz Chisholm does not have any mental training. Doesn't need it. He's in the pros. But given the situation where that game was, that could have changed the outcome of that at bat and not a game. But his reaction mentally, and then I guarantee you his mental side through his nervous system changed how his body approached his next 2 swings. I guarantee it.
I mean, even if it was because the anger took over, and then it was
adrenaline, cortisol. Adrenaline goes up, cortisol goes to the roof. Your focus, your eyes are going to be all over the place. Your heart rate raises. Your palms start sweating. You're pissed off. You tense up, and now your brain's heavy. All the things that you practice and you do real well under calm now don't transfer to the game because you had a reaction mentally. Right. Yeah, and boom, you're strikeout.
Listen, I don't know what it's like to be in a major league locker room or in camp at all. But you would think and I, again, watching all the games that I do with the Yankees, I have very little faith in our coaching staff, very little. And, so I'm curious to know what goes on, because one of the things I see with the Yankees, especially on the offensive side, is that nothing changes no matter what is going on. So, and the only thing that changes is the fucking lineup, which is probably the worst thing that we can have happen, because it's a different lineup. You're hitting in different positions every day. There's no consistency with the lineup whatsoever. However, but that being said, when we're sliding like we are right now in this June swoon, as they're calling it, I'm not seeing a whole lot of things change when these guys come up to the plate. And now what it's doing is it's affecting Aaron Judge, the way he's approaching, because now he's trying to put everything on I'm going to put the team on my back. And the problem with baseball or softball is one guy, unless it's the pitcher, when he strikes everybody out or throws a no-hitter or a perfect game, nobody in the lineup can carry a game, because there are those 8 other guys out there. It's not basketball. It's not even football. The quarterback can take over and just be locked in and do everything he needs to do. Or defensively, one of your linemen or your linebackers can kind of take over and shut people down. In baseball or softball, you can't do that because you need the other people in your team. You can have 1 or 2 guys that are not doing what they're supposed to at the time, but you can't have all the other 8 guys doing it and 1 guy per
No. And that's the biggest thing with coaching, right? And especially at any level, is there needs to be, again, preparedness. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a universal overall approach to what is our identity when we go in the box as a team. And then every individual player, again, their own internal metronome, how their body moves, their own rhythm, their own timing, their swing path, all the things. Mm-hmm. They may have different approaches situationally to the pitcher, what they throw, and the pitch count. But you can I can easily, obviously, tell when teams do not have an actual approach at the plate based on not their swings, not how their body looks when they're swinging, their decision making and what they're swinging at. Decision making. I said it again. Maybe it should be the first part of what we do in life. and hitting.
Maybe.
Make better decisions. How do you train it? Well, don't freaking just let your kids hit balls that I flip to them. I'll 50 out of the bucket. Billy swings at 50 balls in all parts of the strike zone.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think that's maybe it boils down to, I think, with at least some instructors, maybe just not knowing how to teach that.
Yes.
I mean, we could get into the ins and outs of stuff like that. Trust me. So if you're listening to us right now and you have an athlete that you want to see improve at the plate and you want to help them improve their decision making, you want to help them improve their mental approach at the plate. For the same reason that people aren't posting that stuff on their social medias, it's probably one of the same reasons that Matt and I really aren't going to dive deep into that, is because it is not fun to listen to, but it's something. So to my point, if you want that, by all means, please reach out to Matt and have him help you help your athlete, or let him help your athlete, because that's something that I think we get. That's something he should get into with your athlete on the field, in the practice, in the practice area, in the cage. Not so much for him and I to just sit here and chit chat about.
It's not all the best things in life aren't fun to listen to or do.
Right. Right.
You know,
but in this
case, you're right. And yeah, we want to be fun to listen to. So we're going to talk about other fun stuff about hitting. But yes, I'll factually say this, and objectively, if you want your athlete, especially baseball, softball, but any sport, but if you want your athlete to have a better time and get on base more, decision making and mental training.
Yeah.
And call me and I'll point you in the right direction. I'm with a company called Mental Training Plan out of Indianapolis, and I'll give you hacks on how to create better decision makers in the batter's box through neuro-optics development, which is training your eyes to your brain.
Yeah. And so and listen, and once we wrap on all this and it's posted, if you check the bio on there, Matt's information, the way to contact him will all be in the bio for the podcast. It's there. By all means, reach out to him. He's open to talking to everybody. I don't know how many athletes he's currently training at the time. He can't take on too many. He's just one guy and does he doesn't have a team. Like, it's not like he's got 5-6 coaches that are part of
Matt Hallocks Hitting Garage.
Yeah, it's Hallocks Hitting Garage. Like, it's Matt. That's it.
Yeah.
If you want a lesson with me, that's fine. I'll teach you how to talk on the radio.
Yeah. It's just me. I'm doing about 40 to 50 swing analysis a week over the last 4 weeks. So just that is taking up a lot of my time. Yeah,
well, I mean, that'll do it. But it's, and it's great to see. Again, I think it's fantastic to see you back in the element of doing it. This will be HHG 3.0 at this point, I think. But
yeah, I mean, just like any other business or whatever, you gotta continue to evolve, and you gotta close doors at certain times.
Yeah.
To refresh, renew, rescrub, update, to be able to better serve others, right? So yeah, this is the third version.
I think it's the third rendition of Hallocks Hitting Garage at this point.
Yeah.
But, you know what? But I mean, and each time it comes back better.
100%.
I know the last time it was. I'm like, Matt'll be all right. Well, he'll be all right. Trust me.
Yeah, there was a lot. There's a lot, and I think that's the biggest thing. And there's some things that are going to be coming up into 2026 to be able to further just my reach. I think that's the biggest thing. Is load, is like just the amount that I could handle. And the impact that I could do. There's just, because of technology now, I can have more reach,
right?
To be able to put this out to coaches, to parents, to use as what they wish, right? It's just my opinion. A lot of it is factual and logic, and it is objective based, right? But a lot of it is just my opinion. But it's backed by performance, right? If you follow a lot of my social, a lot of the individuals, I don't care if it's one lesson, if it's years, if it's a couple, I've had impacts on a lot of athletes that are being really, really successful. And I don't want to lean on that, but they're more successful as human beings.
Right.
So that's a big thing. And it's just a different philosophy and approach. Like, I'm not a biomechanics coach 100%. Like, I'm not just a mental training coach. I'm going to coach the overall athlete to all things that I have access to, and give them everything that I'm knowledgeable to. So,
Well,
but yeah, there's a lot that we can talk about. The freaking ground, talk about the goddamn ground, the batter's box. I mean, tools, affiliations. I'm wearing one right now that's blowing up. There's so much to hitting.
We're gonna talk about that in a second. But the one thing I wanted to, especially when because I've seen it coming up through, with my youngest being a dancer and Robin being a cheerleader, and you see the quote unquote coaches in those other types of sports, not necessarily great people, and not necessarily the type of people you want around your children, teaching them how to become not only better at whatever their given extracurricular activity is, but also they're impacting these lives in different fashions. And like you and I talked about the way your dad impacted people. And I'm one of those people your dad impacted. And I really wasn't under his tutelage a lot at all. As a matter of fact, 'cause I didn't play, colony baseball with you guys. I was at West Albany or Westland Hills, but I was around you and I was around everybody that we knew. And I was playing on teams with you for school ball, and your father had an impact on me in a positive way. And I don't ever want it to come across that it was in a negative fashion. But the thing I will say about Matt, and if you listen to my show regularly, I think 7 people that listen to this regularly, which I've 4 of them I'm related to. With one I'm gonna marry next year.
Another we're gonna marry.
One's my mom. And Hoffman's one of the other ones.
Derek's the other one.
I will say that Matt is not only a tremendous coach, Matt is not only a tremendous educator when it comes to anything. He's a great person too, and I think that's one of the big things is you have this ability to impact people's lives, not only athletically, and so that you're gearing them up for success on the diamond, so to speak. Or softball's not really a diamond, baseball's not really a diamond either, but whatever.
No, it's not.
It's rounded. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like a weird. I don't know what this is. It looks like a balloon.
True.
But you have this ability to impact them outside the lines as well, and I think that is not something everyone can do. And I thought of this earlier when you were kind of running through your resume. I was like, not everybody that has had the success on the field like you had in college and prior. Not everybody can coach. Not everybody can teach. And you have that ability. Speaking of which, not only does he have the ability to coach and perform, he performed last year in a hardball league where he hit over 500 in the league. Granted, it was a men's league. And and the first thing I said to him, I go, bro, you better tear the cover off the ball. You're a fucking hitting coach.
I have to, right?
You're
I can still swing it too. But you're right. Not every top performer in any industry, I don't care if it's sports or in business or entrepreneurs or public service, not every top performer has the ability to impact, guide, lead, empower, and coach and communicate properly to others, right? I've been given that unique ability. I have the bloodline from my father, and I've came to the realization about 10 years ago through both coaching softball and being a leader of early career talent in the corporate world that I was put on this earth to serve others, right? And I think that's the mission behind everything that I do. If it's at the University of South Florida, University of Tampa, if it's athletes that I impact, if it's having, general conversations, is that I have a unique ability to communicate clearly, effectively to the human being. It's not one message, one approach to everybody. To kind of simplify things and utilize logic a little bit more, mixed in with objective facts and my opinion based on performance. But yeah, I just like to serve others, man. I like to see other people win. I like to see people succeed and do things that they never thought that they were capable of, or they have aha moments that they're like, oh wow, I'm a big fan of others and seeing them succeed in anything I do to help people. If it's the mental side, if it's coaching, I'm a big connector and networking. I just bridge people together. So if I don't know something or I think I could help you yourself, an athlete, NIL, the portal, what's going on, what kind of cleat, bat, glove, whatever it may be, I'm going to connect you to the right people. So yeah, I appreciate the shout outs always, D.
Oh, of course. Listen, I'm a firm believer in giving flowers while you're here, and I try to do that on almost every show. You know, every episode, I try to big you up. I try to big up Derek,
For sure.
and I always have nothing but beautiful things to say about Tara, but she makes it really easy for me to praise her. And she, well, but she's also like, I love that you love me publicly.
Yeah.
You know, because there's some people that just won't do that, and I'm like, I take my platform to, I'll scream it from the rooftops because I've been through my bullshit in my life, and that's done. You know, and to have the
Mm-hmm.
cheerleader with me that she is pretty fantastic, and
Yep.
so there you go.
Surround yourself with good people. Surround your kids with good people and good coaches, man. They're going to become better human beings. They're going to enjoy the game more. I
100%.
know it's not as easy as it is because geographically, some athletes and parents only have access to certain athletes, but we live in the digital space of social media and connectivity. Like virtual lessons are a real thing right now.
Do you deal with a lot of, or do you deal a lot with the travel parent? And
I
you know what I mean.
do.
You
Yeah,
know,
I most of the athletes that I train, they're either active travel ball parents, um, or they've been through that process, and it's a different type of parent.
yeah, yeah. And
um,
I'm a big, like, let the coaches coach and let the umps ump and let the parents
yes,
cheer. It's
cheer,
hard. I get
correct,
it. It's hard because that's your kid out there, and you want them to succeed. You want them to have the best time possible, the best
100%.
experience, whatever. And I get that. However, the umpires are volunteers. The coaches are volunteers. Nobody's getting a check at the end of that game. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news to some parents. The odds that your child is going to play a professional sport are really slim. The odds that your kid is going to look at you and go, "Damn, so and so, that parent is a real a-hole." Some from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot better than your child's chance of playing for the New York Yankees.
100%. I probably witnessed, especially through my 6 years of elite travel fast pitch softball, I've probably witnessed more travel parents than most
Right. Yeah.
one
Oh, yeah.
human beings or coaches across the country. Um, and what I found out, I mean, it's driven by ego, right? That's usually the biggest thing, anything in life. But what I've come to find out in talking to a lot of these parents later, once their children age out, play out, quit, finish playing high school, college, whatever, they do look back and they're like, why didn't I just enjoy it for what be present in the moment for what
Right.
it was and being a fan of my child being healthy enough to be out running around and doing something
Right.
that they love to do. Um, but yeah, it's a wild world.
It,
The travel ball circuit in any sport, dance, cheer, any kind of sport court, field, surface. It is driven by profit and revenue, and when you mix those combinations in with youth sports, it drives some really wonky parents, coaches, all things.
well, one of the things I can say is when we were in that environment when we were at the old dance studio, and we got caught up in the dance parent thing. Not necessarily like we weren't overbearing. It's not like my kid was dancing because
Right.
dance, John Benet, nothing weird like that. All right, we'll see you later. Um, did you lose your internet connection, bro? Please hold while Matt comes back. I don't know if I have any hold music anymore. Oh no. Do, 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 do. So, for those of you on the audio side, what's going on right now is because Matt and I are doing this on StreamYard, we're videoing this as well. And his connection has gotten a little wonky on me. It got Florida, maybe the overheating of the. Oh, and now he's gone. So, we're going to give it a minute and hopefully he can come back in and reconnect. But it was weird. I didn't get the chance to say goodbye, man. He just left, was out. Now he's back. Sorry, I filled the time.
That's all right. John, I heard John Bonet and I got freaked out and my computer shut off.
So, so I just filled the time. I was like,
I was like, Dennis is fine. 30 plus years in this industry. He's going to be, I think the man's going to be okay on the mic. As I have technical difficulty.
So what I was saying was we were in that environment of the dance parent. And when we got out of the one studio, we went to this other one that's kind of subsided with the thing where our teachers, because I think a lot of that is actually fueled by the people that are running the programs. It's not necessarily just the parents, at least in the dance world. I can't say that from any other, but in the world that I was in, it's fueled by the person that's doing the teachers or the people that are running everything. Our teachers now aren't really they love when the kids just get up on stage. If you win or if you place well, obviously they're thrilled. But if you don't, it's more of a how do you feel when you how did you feel when you did it, and how did
right.
What are your feelings about what you just did on stage? Right. If you are happy with it and you did the best you could, doesn't really matter what those judges say.
Right, 100%.
I've been in instances where Maddie has come off stage and thought she did terrible and just crying because she thought she did so bad, and there's nobody there that's putting that pressure on her outside of her. She knows how good she is, and she knows what her best looks like. And if she is not performing to her standards, that's a different situation. Ironically, those times that she's done that, she's gotten second or third place.
Of course,
that's
usually the case.
Yeah, dude, what were you so upset about? She's like, I was terrible, and I'm like, well, the judges don't know what you're supposed to do; they just know what they see. And
correct.
But for the parents, as I am one of athletes of different breeds and different, not in the wheelhouse that we're in here, but it's just let the kids be the kids, man, and do it, and let the coaches do. If you want your kid to excel, yes, then, but take it easy, man. Take it easy on your children.
Yes, it's gonna end at some time, and when it ends, you don't want to drink from the cup of retrospect and say, I wish I acted this way or enjoyed it more, right? It's the one thing, it's one of the biggest regrets of any parent is when their child's athletic career is over, that they wish they acted, enjoyed, was present more, did all the things.
Yeah.
A little bit more. So, no, 100% agree.
Oh, and by the way, and I'll say this because I'm not a coach, and it doesn't. Your kid might suck. You're not everybody's a superstar, and just because you think your kid is phenomenal, he might not be. She might not be. It might not be their cup of tea. Try a different sport. Might find out that they are super athletic, but it's on the soccer field.
Correct. Or they're their hand-eye dexterity is amazing and they're great at the piano. Never put them in front of the piano, right? Or play the saxophone or the bassist or paint or whatever, cook food.
Maybe this just isn't their thing, but Jesus, that's the one thing. That's the one thing where it's man, I'm glad I'm not a coach or a teacher like that, because I'd just be like, this is not what your kid should be doing.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation. I've had those conversations, and again, I don't want to keep patting myself on the back of the differentiator of me against others, right? Because I am pro for coaches, but I think there are differences in how people coach, regardless of what the sport is on just coaching the overall person. Um, and that's the greatest thing and a legacy that I want to stand my family's name on. But yeah, hitting. What about? Is there something that you don't? You know so much more now, Dennis, because of our connection and your just love of the overall game, right?
Yeah.
But is there anything that like you've heard or been around me and now look through the game differently that you're like, oh Jesus, that just makes sense. I never thought about it.
I think a lot of it, to be honest with you, because I think you and I have had the conversation about like just our upbringings in the game. And you were the one doing the work behind the scenes that nobody really knew about.
Nobody saw, yeah.
You know, you were in the garage on Sand Creek. You were doing that with Coach. And I was the guy that just loved to play baseball. And I didn't really
you love to play.
I didn't put the work in like that. I was in the cage, like from time to time, I would go to like Grand Slam USA or whatever the case would be, just to get some swings in. And I knew at least I was swinging at strikes because it was a pitching machine. So that thing isn't throwing, you know, if you're in a batting cage and the pitching machine is firing pitches, like you should get out of that batting cage because you're probably going to get hurt. And maybe someone should recalibrate that machine.
Correct.
But it's funny because, like, I know when we talked about batting practice when we were younger and just get in there and you get off your 15, 20 swings or whatever. And the kids that just go in, they're like, you got to swing. And one of the things I will say, at least for myself, was when I was doing that and getting in, you know, when it was my turn to hit, I wasn't up there just free swinging. Like if I didn't think I could, if it wasn't something I could hit, I wasn't swinging at it. It didn't matter.
Why swing at it? Right.
You know, it didn't matter. I was like, I don't give a shit if we only have this amount of time. You want me to swing, throw strikes. Like, because I'm not.
And that's why you were successful, even like you said, with the limited practice that you put in and still enjoyed the game because you were training. Like you were in the minority there, right? As a youth athlete, that you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to swing at that in the game. Why the heck am I going to swing in a practice?
Right. Yeah.
But 90% of the coaches, 90% of the athletes don't have that same thought process.
Right.
So I think that was a big separator for you, and just like, hey, that's also your wit and your logic that you've always had from your dad. Like, hey, this just makes sense, so I'm not going to do this. Like,
well, and I think that's so. And it was kind of passed along to me too, because you know when my dad was younger, he was an athlete, and he played baseball, he played fast pitch softball. He used to play like he played against the king in his court. You know, like he had done all of that and was heavy into the softball, like fast pitch leagues and stuff like that. And it wasn't to the extent, you know, of passed down to me and get me out there and getting my swings off and stuff like that. I'm sure if we could go back, the old man would do things differently with me. And
of course,
I would do things differently, you
know?
But it was the path that I was supposed to be on because I've always been the jester and I've always been the smart ass, and I'm an entertainer, and that's basically what
that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, like I you know, but it's part of my genealogy too with the entertainment because like my grandfather, my uncle, my great uncle were musicians. They were musicians. They were entertainers. My dad's an entertainer. My uncle's an entertainer on the music side of things, and you know, they were in a band, and I was like, well, I'm not that. I could have put in the practice, but instead I went a different route, and I went into the radio realm and the DJ realm. And, you know, as I try to dip my feet into the stand-up comedy realm, I like entertaining people, and I like that reaction from people, and I like putting smiles on people's faces.
But you also know a lot about hitting.
I do, which is, I mean, that's enough about me and my ridiculous career choices.
But I think one of the big things I definitely want to like get your thoughts on, but I think one of the biggest things that I was exposed to over the last few years that really, don't want to say changed my thought process, but it was an aha moment for me, and it made me focus more on, from a biomechanics standpoint, the importance of it was the ground. Our gravity and feet are the only things that connect us to the ground. And I started kind of a little bit of a run on social media through TikTok and Instagram now with every hitting instructor I see say something about the lower half, right? Everybody sees the upper half because it's connected to your chest and arms. We hold the bat hits the ball. So everything that we usually see is a upper half because that's what gets us to the result of what we want to do when we watch baseball and softball. But meanwhile, the only thing that connects us to our ground and where everything starts is the ground.
Right.
So, shout out Dr. Philip Stoddard. Kind of became his understudy real quick through V1 Sports, Louisville Slugger. He's the AFRA specialist when it comes to Major League Baseball and lower extremity and ground pressure mapping. I got a whirlwind with him, right? Dennis, you were at a camp that, he came and visited up in Loudonville at St. Pius. And then I ran down with him to Athletes Warehouse and Cassie Riley Bosia and did all this really wonky lower extremity stuff. So I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to hitting. A lot of people think biomechanics, think everything with the bat, angle, where it is, swing path, get to the ball. Where your lower half is in your stance when you're static, when you load, when you stride to launch position, wherever your entire body is through that process is where the bat's going to go. Everything starts from the ground up. I don't care what sport, even if you're a swimmer, you got to dive off the damn block or the platform, right? So everything starts from the ground up, and I think that's one of the, again, separators that I've really dived into as a hitting instructor on the importance of just a really stable base to manage your mass as it's actually moving. One, linear, you're loading back to the catcher, and then you're striding to the pitcher, and then you go rotational, is what is our lower half doing. Not a lot of coaches talk about that.
Which is that's always blown my mind too, because I mean, not so much the ground pressure stuff, but just the lower half in general.
The lower half.
That lower half with your turn and between your load, your turn, your hips, your thigh, your legs. I don't understand how people aren't preaching that because of the fact that your legs are stronger than your upper body.
It's the biggest muscles. Your glutes, your quads,
Yeah.
your hamstrings, and your calves are superior to any other muscle group in your body. And then your pelvis is kind of the central point. And from a rotation, there's so many commonalities and similarities to the golf swing and baseball swing. And that's where we got a lot. You know this, Dennis, right? Because of that body movement. And that's where a lot of the V1 ground pressure, everything lower half started from Dr. Stoddard, is because PGA professionals and hitting instructors were using lower extremity mapping and coaching because, heck, athletically, look at a volleyball player, look at a basketball player, look at a football player, look at everything when they're static to then when they go in motion. You got to be in an athletic position and your body's got to be in a certain position to then do what it needs to do. And not enough hitting instructors talk, again, just like the decision-making training and just like the mental approach training, visually on social media, it doesn't get the click rates or it's not as sexy or gets the subscriptions than talking about the bat and the path and the ball being hit. But without a good foundation, the upper half doesn't do anything. It's all out of whack.
No, 100%. I think the only person that can hit a ball 7,000 feet in just arms is Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, I mean he's what 6'8", 270, but there's things. I 100% agree with you.
But he's so strong, like his upper body
so
is so
strong
that it's just. But not everybody gets, and his bat speed is bananas. But not everybody can do that. He's an anomaly.
We're not talking about the 3 million youth baseball and softball players that are actively playing right now through the Little League system. This doesn't account for the another 3 to 4 million on top of them, 8 to 18-year-olds that play travel baseball or softball. We're talking about Giancarlo Stanton, who's a 101. But also, if you really broke down slow-mo his swing, especially the lower half of it, it's a great athletic, minimal movement to get him and his body, the way he's designed and swings, to the point of contact. He's closed off on his front half, meaning that his front lead foot, his left foot at his stance, opposed to his rear back foot, is closer to the front line or home plate as far as distance, right? He's kind of closed off, which allows him to not over-rotate, because his pelvis is in a position when he goes rotational that it has to stop and brace. Like it's physics and anatomy, right? If he was open or equal to the pitcher or had an open stance, he would be spinning, flying off, and he would still not be able to hit things away. Or his bat would lag. But literally, it goes back to your base and foundation is the key to all things that happen when the upper body closes and snaps toward this ball. Where your balance is, where your shift of your weight back towards the catcher, out over your front, where the nose or your chest is over the plate, or having posture, if you're back on your heels, all of those different scenarios have a different path to the ball. And there are proper things with your lower half that you need to do prior to your upper half rotating to have more consistent bat path to the ball. So your bat gets in the zone, stays in the zone as long as possible, and then out.
And there's drills
lower
for that.
Half. There's drills for that. 1,000 lower extremity drills. Call Hallocks Hitting Garage, and I will just give them to you.
Numbers in the bio.
Numbers in the bio.
All Matt's information is in the bio, or it's in the description of this episode.
You want to hit the ball harder. You don't need to swing the bat further. You need to create kinetic energy up your kinetic chain from the ground, which is the only thing you're connected to. You think a golfer, when they come down and swing at a ball, you see them compress into the ground? Yeah. They're using the ground as energy because it's the only thing you can actually use.
So coming down, like in golf, that would be the pull, because that's on your backswing, and then once you hit your hinge, that's your pull down, and you're going down into the ground, into the ball, and getting yourself into that position to make the best contact. The other thing too, though, it's wild because I noticed this and it just popped into my head. It doesn't have much to do with ground anything, but it has to do with hitting. Is Jazz, after he came back from that injury, the 70%? Have you heard about this?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation around that as far as effort or bat speed to the ball based on situational hitting or where they're at to have a higher. It's basically to have a higher contact rate.
Right.
Is all. How do I get my barrel on the ball? Do I swing 100%, max my body out? Or do I ease back a little bit to have a better, cleaner path to the ball? Do I have a higher contact rate? Logically, it makes sense. I don't care how fast or slow you swing. Contact the ball more. Mm-hmm. You have a higher percentage of getting on base.
In golf, they tell you not to overswing, and that's one of the things.
Yeah.
You don't swing hard. You let the club do the work and got it, all that fun stuff.
100%. There's a reason race car drivers don't floor to pedal the Indy 500 the whole freaking race.
Right.
Like it just makes it's just anatomy again, kinesiology and biomechanics. If you're max efforting your body, it's going to get out of whack. But there are times that based on pitch location, situational hitting, pitch count, that we can unleash the max effort of our body if our base is properly managing the load of it.
Right. Like when I heard the thing with I think it gets misconstrued because the way I listen to that, and when I hear Jazz only swinging 70%.
Yeah,
swing,
that's
I go
totally misconstrued.
I'm like, well, I don't think what I think people are hearing is he's only swinging, at 70% of his full capacity. And I'm like,
what is full capacity? Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's more of a mental thing. And it's keeping him within himself. And
that's exactly what it is.
His success rate since he's come back from the injury and this new approach has gone way up. Because he's putting the bat on the ball. And it's amazing what can happen when you put the ball in play in baseball or softball.
Wow.
Not for nothing, all of you guys that think a strikeout is just an out, it's just the same as a ground out or a fly out. Absolutely not, because you know what happens when you strike out? Nobody can make an error.
Zero.
You strike out, you're fucking out. I hit the ball to the second baseman. He's a human. He might trip. He might misplay it. It might bounce funny.
100%.
He might not.
He's got to catch it, throw it, and another human's got to catch it.
Yeah, you're taking out the human. That drove me nuts
I know.
before I got involved with you. And I'm
I
like,
know.
no, a strikeout is not the same as a fucking ground
No,
out or a
not at
line
all.
out.
But you are 100% D. You're onto exactly what it is, and shame on all of you coaches if your schedule allowed you to be on the 4:30 yesterday, which was at this time June 24th, free coaching mental training seminar that I was a part of. That was a mental cue. That was exactly what you said. It was a mental cue to allow him to freely move better in the
Mhm.
batter's box, coming out of being on the IL to stay within his swing and not just max effort it and fly and spin off the ball and
Yeah.
his weight distribution being forward or too far back or whatever. It was a true mental cue to maintain more body control in the box is all it was,
Right.
which is what we coach and train at mentaltrainingplan.com.
There you go. Plug.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But you were right. That's what exactly was. He's not swinging every time he swings 70% of what his max effort is. Because if
Right.
you look at his strike three swing, he was max effort in it because his adrenaline was through the roof. His cortisol was spiked. He was fired up because 3 pitches ago he was still pissed off from it, and he max effort and he swung through it.
Yeah. Yeah. He was mad.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that real quick because I want to wrap here pretty soon. But I
Sure.
want to touch because it's something that you and I talked about when we first discussed doing the episode. We talked about Jazz and how he got all fired up and stuff like that, and how it throws off his mental game, his approach in there. It shoots the adrenaline through the roof. It screws up everything when he's in the batter's box. Now we're talking about, and now here's the thing. That's one scenario where it
Of a professional athlete.
but more times than not, these guys are able to get themselves back into
100%.
back into their approach, back into their mental game plan when they're at the plate. Now,
Yep.
excuse me. Now, without getting on the umps and the challenge system that Major League Baseball definitely needs, because I don't ever want to see the human aspect taken away from baseball, but we need something because we're getting progressively worse, and the umps union is just keeping them employed.
Right.
Now, we'll take it down to a completely different level. We'll go into the youth sports. So now we have, let's say, a teenager, a 13-year-old, boy or girl, whatever the case may be. You get in there. Now you have trained umps, but you don't have the elite umpires at the game. The
Correct.
ump makes a call that is, in the batter's eyes, wrong.
Yep.
The hitter feels that they're right. Their adrenaline, all of their stuff goes up. Now they have to step out and try to get themselves back. So we had talked about it. For a professional athlete, that's one thing. That these guys have done this so many different times, and it is what it is. But can you imagine what that does to a child? Like, how do you?
I know it. Yeah.
But how do you? Especially as someone that trains like the mental approach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you like touch on that with the kids ever, or do we not so much talk about that?
100%, because that's life, right? And everything under the garage.
Go your way.
Yeah, I'm correlating training to also everyday life. There are going to be situations in your life where it's not going to go the way that you thought it was going to go, regardless of the situation. Even if you were 100% right and objective and have fact and all the things, it's not going to go your way. How do I stop all things in my head that then creates a chemical reaction to my body to be able to focus on the next second after that? Right. So yes, through mental training plan, you have to train it. That's the thing, is a lot of coaches talk about it. Like, they don't put the athletes in the scenarios that are going to replicate that, and then give them the necessary skills and tools to practice it leading up to it happening in the game. Right? So, because you could tell somebody, like I said, you could tell them, we can put a clip just like this up and be like, okay, watch it, listen to this podcast, read this phrase in the book, look at this thing that this Olympian put out about, resiliency and coming back, I'm going to remember it within that snapshot. Within an hour, I'm going to remember maybe like 80% of it. A week later, I'm going to remember maybe like 10% of that.
Right.
You got to practically apply. It's training. It's just like physical training. So yes, we're going to replicate high pressure scenarios and situations that don't go your way in practice, and then we're going to give you tools and a playbook to how do you handle it. So when it happens in the game, you've been through that. You know mentally what to do as far as your self-talk. You know what your focus points are, right? You're educated to how it then physiologically and psychologically changes the course of your body and how your body's going to react. Not only your mental state, like how is it going to physically change your body and your swing. So yeah, it's the biggest mind F for athletes is probably a called pitch that, especially when they know it's not, and it doesn't end the at bat, and they have to step in the batter's box 3 seconds later because the ball's being thrown back to the pitcher.
Right.
It is literally across millions of youth athletes, high school, collegiate, and pro. The least trained aspect of coaching is how do we handle things that don't go our way.
There is so much more to baseball. So much more to hitting than I think most people think.
No clue. You're 100% right. Everything you see on social is all of that. And then there's layers more, Dennis, on what you can do to really just help your athlete have more fun playing the sport they play and get on base more. OBP.
Unless you are just a naturally gifted athlete like me, who just went up
like
there.
You, Kevin Bartlett, Dennis Romanowski, Kevin Bartlett, Vladimir Guerrero, all these, they just
Kevin
see the
Bartlett
ball and hit it hard.
Kevin Bartlett was Vlad Guerrero before Vlad Guerrero was a thing.
He 100% was. 100%. I wish I had Kevin Bartlett videos from back in the day. He was Vladimir Guerrero. Before there was Vladimir Guerrero. He was the best bad ball, non-strike pitcher I have ever seen in the history of baseball, other than Vladimir Guerrero. Jesse Warren is a very good bad ball hitter, too.
If we had cell phones like we have now, back when we played school ball, Kevin would have gone viral a dozen times by that.
Oh, 100%. I've never seen a kid hit. He'd smoke balls in the gap, or he would hit doubles and triples on balls that you're not even supposed to be able to reach with a bat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's layers to this that not all coaches are knowledgeable to, and it's no fault of their own. A lot of what you see on social is biomechanics, and there's so much preparatory work that can go into it to make you a better hitter. There's tools. I mean, heck, I'm wearing one on my head that can help. There's the mental training. There's optics training to make better decisions. There's approach. There's a lot of things that parents buy a new bat, put them athletes in front of instructors to get them more swings or a different opinion on how their swing is, and there's just so many other things that they could be doing.
Yeah, I just wanted to run my LL Cool J.
I love it. I do want to drop, especially for a clip, because we're going to clip a lot of this. I do want to drop some instructors that I follow on social. I follow like everybody.
Yeah, well, it's funny because as we were getting ready to wrap, I was going to I want you to shout out the people that, aside from yourself, who are some people that you think, people out there looking, who should they be looking for?
Yeah, I definitely my content creation is a little bit different and unique. Now, there's some instructor out there that this is their prime function. Like I have 15 other thousand things that I'm doing in life and serving others other than hitting instruction. If I had 100% of my time and I was 100% a hitting instructor, you'd see vastly more content than the ones I put out. But if you want to follow any type of hitting instructor, baseball or softball, they universally do both. Definitely Josh Cathcart of Hitting Done Right. You can just look up Josh Cathcart or Hitting Done Right. Probably one of the best breakdowns biomechanically from a hitting instruction standpoint, baseball or softball. He's out of Texas. I would also follow Ian Jenkins. Yeah, Ian Jenkins, baseball, former minor leaguer, does a great job breaking it down. Coach Murph of I Coach Baseball, he really just breaks it down from a simplistic standpoint. Um, Rob Cruz at a complete claim. He's more softball focused, but Coach Rob, he's actually out of the boogie down, out of the Bronx, and out of New Jersey. He's big one. Definitely Coach. I don't know why they're running. Coach Clayton is another big one. If you look up Coach Clayton or hitting instruction, he's at Upper Class Sports. Another just very simplistic breakdown. Coach Clayton talks a lot on the mental side too, which is awesome. So I love Coach Clayton. And probably one of my biggest ones, I can't, because I'm biased, New York State Hall of Fame softball player, 4-year starter, national champion at the University of Alabama. Probably the best, and I've been around a lot, hitting instructor I've ever known, or to this day still known, Cassie Riley Bosia, down in Pleasantville, New York, out of Athletes Unlimited Performance Center, Softball Strength Academy. Look up Coach Cassie Riley Bosia. Had the pleasure to work with her multiple times, do a camp with her, go down to her facility. She's just, I mean, amazing. Probably the best hitting instructor I know. So those are all of those. I'll clip those and put those out, but those are some of the ones that I would follow, like on social media.
Not file.
And file them, save them, set your notifications. There's a lot of content out there, which is awesome, but you got to consume the right stuff.
True. 100%.
Yep.
Listen, it has been an absolute pleasure talking baseball, talking softball, talking hitting, talking golf, talking life. It's always fun. Thank you for making time for this. If I would have loved to have put it back out on the HHG podcast that I don't have access to anymore.
Right.
I work for a different company.
We're gonna be inside the mine, which is completely fine with me.
Which is fine. Listen, it's about getting it out there. But no, it was a blast, man. And since it's our first time like face to face, we've chatted on the phone. Thank you again for being a part of my wedding next year.
Absolutely excited for that.
Yes, that.
I'm bringing a tea in the net to the venue. We're gonna hit too. I'm just joking.
Super. Taylor's gonna love that shit. That'll be great.
Maybe a basketball hoop. That would be better, more in line with us.
But I think one of the biggest and coolest things that I have going on, at least on my side of the wedding party, is there are so many different aspects of my life that are represented.
For
in
sure.
My wedding party, between my two girls being my quote unquote best men, or my best girls. I got you and Derek from not only now, but my guys from back in the day. And then I got a couple of guys that are my guys now, that became a part of my life later on in it. And but no, having you and Derek with me is going to be, it was amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be my pleasure, man. It's gonna be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. Another layer chapter in the history of Dennis Romanowski and all things that he's evolving into. So I'm excited to be a part of that. But I do want to give a couple shout outs because I know I'm going to clip this. Just a couple of my partners. Obviously, I've mentioned it multiple times. mentaltrainingplan.com. Ben Carnes. I'm going to be soon to be a certified mental training coach here in the next couple of months under their program. Definitely shout out to Nine Strap Technology and Ryan Vaughn out of Southern California. Was blessed over a year ago to kind of build a relationship with him and love what that tool is now doing, and it's approved nationally by high school baseball and softball mitigation tool, biomechanics tool. That thing is just exploding. And then LV Lumber, the bats that Jackson and I swung last year, you guys see on a lot of my content video. Zach, one of the owners out of Pennsylvania, started it 4 years ago. As far as pediatric cancer research, so very close, near and dear, that bat company. So you'll see a lot of LV Lumber from out of Hallocks Hitting Garage being swung. But yeah, D, I appreciate it. It was fun, man. The motto, aggressively selective, speaks to it. It is like a mental note to tell yourself, like Chaz, that's my cousin. Chaz tells himself 70%. Yeah, stay aggressively selective, man. That's life. Go after stuff. We're on offense. Push the needle, but make the right decisions when you do it.
Yeah. Be smart about being aggressive.
I mean, 100%. Let's freaking hit the ball hard, but let's hit it in places that we know that our body can get to. That's hard.
Let's just 4 goddamn outfielders. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, just hit it over the fence or pound it into the ground.
No, because then I gotta run, bro, and then we ain't doing that. I'm not
no, running's not fun. We used to. I mean, that was the biggest thing. What do you like about the game when they're 8, 9? I like running the bases. Yeah, when you're a little bit older, let's see if you.
I don't like that shit at all. I'd rather jog.
Yeah, exactly.
But listen, again, thank you for joining. Shout out to anybody that sat through it. It might take you a couple of tries to get through it, but a lot of good information in there. A lot of good, just some good knowledge coming out of the brain of Matt Hallocks. So this is inside the mind of D.Scott, but really it was from the mind of Matt Hallocks. I'm gonna end it like I always end it because it's something that I said I think once, and Derek was like, "I like that." So let's keep that. And if you can't find the good news, be the good news. Deuces.